It's day 2 at the 2016 Eric C. Yetter Champions Cup. After 2 rounds, Brady Williams is in first place. Does he have the stamina to stay on top after round 3? Stay tuned as Disc Golf Monthly starts now. Welcome and thank you for joining us for third round coverage during day 2 at the 2016 Eric C. Yetter Champions Cup. Last month, we saw Bradley Williams putting in a solid round where he held on to his lead by playing a consistent round and not giving anything away to Brian Schweberger. Today will be a one-round event of 27 holes with a group of 4 on the lead card. To see who made it on the lead card, let's take a look. In first place, shooting a 119, we have Bradley Williams from Austin, Texas, followed by Brian Schweberger from Tarboro, North Carolina, in second place, shooting a 122. And third place, we have a tie between Andrew Fish from Baltimore, Maryland, and Owen Hileman from Thomasville, PA, both shooting a 127. Well, this is going to be an exciting group, especially with Andrew Fish on the lead card. We're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we'll be taking you to hole 19 at the start of round 3. Stay tuned and don't go away. We'll be right back. And welcome back for the start of round 3.
Yep, tear them up, guys.
It's going to be one round of 27 holes today at the 2016 Eric C. Yetter Champions Cup. And we're going to start off on basket 19. This is a par 3, 261 feet. It's a very technical layout. As we see Bradley about to take his drive. He puts a very high hyzer shot. Looks like it got knocked down a little bit early. Ron's going to take more of an outside shot. Looks like that worked for him very nicely. Now we have Andrew Fish with his drive. Uh-oh. Andrew takes the inside
Bradley's
route.
line.
Looks like he didn't mean to take that route. And here's Owen.
Hey. Oh, thank
with
you.
His drive.
Oh, man, it's gonna hit.
Here's Owen's second shot. He's just going to try and lay up. Looks like he may have gone a little bit too far. And Bradley with his second shot. He's going to try a turnover shot. Lay it up to the basket. It's just beyond that big tree up ahead. And Andrew with his second shot. He looks like he may be going for this. And it just gets cut down by that big, thick tree. There you see the flag just poking out to the left from behind that big tree. Brian's going to try for this with a hyzer shot. It's going to go in and just fade away a little too early. Just didn't have enough on it. Here's Bradley for his 3. And he makes it. And everybody made par on the first hole. And now we're moving on to basket 1. This is a par 4, 459 feet. This is a straight shot. You can't go too far, otherwise you'll go out in the OB in the field, and then it takes a dog leg right as you get out open to the clearing. It's a very technical shot off the tee, as you can see. Bradley has a very straight shot with it fading off at the end. Here's Brian with his first throw. drive also is going to fade off to the left.
Okay.
Here comes Andrew Fish. Andrew's drive also is going off to the left. Here we have Ellen.
Pretty.
So we have 4 drives about in the same spot. Riley just didn't make it through the clearing completely, however. And he's going with a turnover shot, backhand.
I don't know yet.
We'll have to find out how close that made it to the basket. Here's Brian. He made it out, but you can see the basket straight ahead. Just off to the left of that grouping of vegetation. Brian's going to throw a turnover shot. This is going to fade back a little bit. That should be in his wheelhouse for a putt. And here's Andrew with his second throw. He's also going to throw a turnover shot. This one's going to fade out a little too early. It's going to go away from the basket. Here's Owen with probably the best drive out of the group. Going to the flick shot. We'll have to be careful. There's some out of bounds, not too close to where the basket is, but it is something you have to be careful for on this layout. Here's Brian. He's putting for 3. And it just drops a little too early for him. And now Bradley for his birdie putt. And that just had enough on it. It stayed in the air long enough for our first birdie of the round. Very nice. It was a little over 30 feet. Here is Owen. He misses his putt. Here we have Andrew Fish putting for birdie, and he makes it. So Bradley's going to pick up 1 stroke over the group, over Brian, however. So he has a 4-stroke lead over Brian. Andrew Bradley with the only birdies on that hole. Now we're moving on to basket 3. This is a par 5, 797 feet. This is a highly technical, the most technical challenges on the course. A very narrow opening, as you can see off the tee. Bradley's going to go with a turnover shot that's going to fade back at the end very nicely for him. He's going to be very close to the out-of-bounds walkway that is just to the left. Here's Andrew with his drive. He's going to throw a rather low shot. He's going to get down there nicely, though.
That's fine.
That stays about in the middle of the fairway. Brian with his tee shot. Brian doesn't get much turn on that. He was looking to flip that a little bit. It just didn't work out for him. Here's Owen with his drive. Owen got a little too much turn on that. Let's see if it fades back before it gets struck down by that vegetation. Looks like he may not have made it out of that. Riley's going to go with an overhand shot. It looked like that worked for him. Owen's playing out of the trees here. And he throws a turnover shot that just hits the tree early. But he makes it onto the fairway, so he's in good shape. Brian has a very tough challenge here. Looks like he may try to go with a turnover shot here. He has to be careful of those trees, and he makes it. And he looks like that worked for him. That had just enough turn. Andrew with a second shot. Going with an overhand, or a sidearm shot, rather. He gets struck down early. Riley's going to try to cut through that vegetation, take a shortcut, because to the basket. It looks like that may actually work for him. It's very dangerous going through that vegetation. A lot of unseen branches that could easily knock your disc down. Owen's just laying up here. It looks like that'll work for him. Here's Brian with his third shot. And he's going to lay up and take the birdie, which is a very smart move. It's right under the basket. Here's Bradley with his birdie shot. And he's also, looked like he kind of made a run at that there. We have Bradley taking the par. Brian's going to get one stroke back with that birdie. And now it's back to a 3-stroke lead by Bradley, with Brian making that birdie. It's Brian's first birdie of the round. We're moving on to basket 4, to par 4, 484 feet. This is another very technical challenge here. You have to be careful to the right. There's a steep drop-off where there's a little still water, a little pond at the bottom of that drop-off that's to the right. And Andrew makes it very nicely up the fairway. He just floated one up there. Here's Brian with his drive. Brian was looking to turn that a little sooner, but it did work for him, and he got some fantastic distance off that. Here's Bradley with his drive. And that's right on the fairway. Perfect place to be. Here's Owen with his drive as well. He got a lot of speed on that, and just hit one tree. Had one tree to beat, and it just knocked it down. He's somewhat down the fairway a little bit here. This is going to be a challenging out for him. And not sure if he got out of that.
What an out.
Oh, it sounds like he did. And here's Bradley with his second shot. And he cleared that gap nicely. Let's just see how that fades for him. He could be in putting position. And here's Andrew with his second shot. He makes it through that gap nicely. He could also be putting for a 3. Here's Brian with his second shot. The other two players made it through that gap. Let's see if Brian can do it. And, oh, not sure. There's Owen with his third shot. And he just floats one up there, and it's going to drop nicely for him.
Great shot.
Right by the basket. So he should get his par with that. Brian has a little more distance to go. He's going to throw a thumber very gently, and that's going to drop for him. And he should pick up his par with that. Here's Bradley shooting for birdie. This is something you don't see often on this layout. And he makes it.
Nice birdie.
And that's his second birdie of the round. And he is going to move back to being 4 strokes ahead of Brian. Here's Brian putting for par. And he makes it. So a little back and forth with the lead for Bradley and Brian. Now we're moving on to basket 6. This is a par 4, 450 feet. With the Amanda that you see, it's not really going to come to play much. Here is Andrew with his drive. A very straight shot with dog leg left. And Bradley with his drive. He takes a very hyzer shot. Not sure if they hit a tree or not. Here's Brian's drive. Brian gets a little bit of a late release. He gets knocked off a tree early. Here's Owen with his first shot. That's a very high hyzer shot.
There you go. Good shot.
That looked like that's really going to work nicely for him. Brian's going to try to go with a thumber to get through this. And I don't hear anything, so it looks like they have worked for him. Here's Bradley. Looks like he's going to go with a very high Spike Heiser shot. We'll see if that hit anything. That could have been a great shot for him. Andrew with his second shot. He had a fantastic drive. He could be putting, depending upon where his lie is. Bradley with his second shot. And he's just going to go with a flick shot, very soft flick shot.
Nice.
Shot.
Owen. His second shot, the longest drive out of the group. This is the second time Owen's had the longest drive out of the group. Here's Brian putting for 4. And it just spits out the back on him. And at this point, Bradley's going to go advance to a 5-stroke lead over Brian, with Brian getting that bogey. And now we're moving on to basket 7. This is a par 3, 271 feet. This is a straight shot, a little bit of that technical. You have some trees to worry about. You have a long slope on the left side. And Owen comes off with a very nice drive. There's a water hazard down below to the left. If you overshoot the basket, there's a very steep drop-off, very sudden. This could go OB in the water in the Chamonix Creek that's down below. Here's Bradley with his drive. And Bradley floats one out there. It's going to hit a tree and get knocked down early. Just didn't have enough speed on it to make it past that tree. Here's Brian's drive. Brian is also going to the backhand. He gets a lot of turn on that. We'll have to see how close that got him to the basket. Here's Andrew with his second shot. He's going to try to go with an overhand or sidearm shot, and it just didn't stay in the air long enough. It was a little too low. And Bradley's approach shot. He's going to go with a jump putt just to see how close he can get. And Brian is going to try to go with a turnover shot. He's going to run at this. Comes up a little short. Here's Andrew putting for par. And he runs right at that pin. It's a very dangerous shot. If you go over the basket and you miss the basket and you go over, you're going to go all the way down a very steep hill. Potentially could go into the Neshaminy Creek, which lies below. And here's Owen.
Yeah, Owen's good bird.
And Owen makes it. Owen gets a birdie. It's his first birdie of the round. I'm sorry, that's his second birdie of the round. We still have a 5-stroke lead between with Bradley over Brian. And we're moving on to basket 8. This is a par 4, 505 feet. This is another very tight fairway. A lot of thin trees poked on either side. And Owen puts a high shot and floats it out there. It's going to hyzer off to the left. There's another hole you have to be careful in Chamonix Creek. That's, you see that off to the right. Looks like it's, and here's Andrew with his shot. There's a very straight shot.
Nice,
it's going to turn nicely. So he should be just down the hill. There's a little drop off. It looks like he's right at that drop off. Here's Bradley with his drive. And he does much the same as Andrew does. He looks like he got even more distance. Here's Brian with his drive. And Brian also floats one out there. It hyzers off a little too early. Players have to be careful off the tee on this shot, and Owen still has to be careful. He gets struck down a little early. Then Chamonix Creek is off to the right, as you can see in the background. When those currents are really moving fast, then your disc goes in that water. You'll never see it again. They'll take it downstream, and that'll be the end of it. Here's Brian with his second shot. He's going with a thumber. He's going to throw a very low thumber. He's looking for a skip. Looks like he may have gotten it. Bradley's going to go with an overhand. a turnover flick shot rather. Looks like that got him up there quite nicely. Here's Andrew with his second shot. Looks like he did outdrive Bradley. He's also going to go with the sidearm shot. He's going right at, and it's not going to stick. It's going to continue to go down, and finally it comes to a stop. And Bradley just puts one up there. This is a dangerous spot basket to have to putt from as well, because if you overshoot the basket, you could end up coming down here from where they're making their approach shots right now. Here's Brian with his third shot. Brian just sets it up there. Andrew looks, he's going to run at this. And he makes it. That's amazing. He makes it for the birdie. He ties Brian with that shot, as Brian is putting for par. And now we have Brian and Andrew tied at 149. And we're moving on to basket 9. This is a par 5, 558 feet. This is a shot that essentially the fairway kind of winds around.
There it is.
Owen with his tee shot, he still has the box.
Got him.
This will take a turn to the left. The fairway will take a turn to the left, go uphill a little bit, and then it'll have a downhill approach.
That'll work. Yep.
Brian's drive. Here's Bradley. Bradley's going to take the same approach as the other players. A hyzer shot.
Yeah. Oh, that shot.
That just skips up the fairway. All those other drives should be a decent amount of distance up that hill that you see right there. And Andrew banks off a tree. Here's Brian with his second shot. He's going with a thumber. He just tries to put it through that gap. Another dangerous gap. A lot of thick trees. Here's Owen with a second shot. He gets a nice kick off a tree. That's going to take him down the fairway. It's just a matter of whether or not he's on the fairway or not, or he's off to the rough. And here's Bradley with his another sidearm shot.
Good.
Andrew also going with a thumber shot, but he got struck down early. A lot of thin branches to contend with when you go through the rough at Tyler State Park.
Miss it. Oh. Missed it.
And here you have Brian with a turnover shot. Looks like he may have gotten close to where he could be putting. Here's Owen. And that worked. Oh, that would have worked very nicely for Owen. It just hit that one tree and knocked him down. Here's Bradley with his third shot. He's going to go to a turnover flick shot and just float one up there. And that hits something. There he is. He has to play out a little bit of the rough here with his fourth shot. And that should putt for him. Here's Brian, a long putt for birdie. And he just went a little bit to the left. Owen is putting for birdie as well. Yeah, and he makes it over the creek for the birdie. Amazing. Here's Brian. He's putting for par. He'll need this to keep a 4-stroke distance between Bradley and him, and he makes it. And Bradley also makes it for par. So we still have a 4-stroke distance at the top between Bradley, Andrew, and we're moving on to basket 15. This is a par 4, 460 feet. This is a layout where, depending upon how much rain has fallen, that off to the right, there's a creek. We see Owen, he's going with a flick shot off the tee. There's a creek off to the right. Depending upon how much rainfall they've had, will matter if there's OB, that creek is OB or not.
Good shot.
And that's a fantastic shot. Just with a sudden kick at the end for Andrew Fish. Here's Brian with his drive. He's going to go with a thumber. And that seemed like that worked nicely for him. If there isn't a lot of rain, the creek bed that's off to the right will be dried out, so there won't actually be any OB. And Bradley with his tee shot, he splits the gap of those trees just ahead. But he kicks a tree at the very end. Here's Andrew with his second shot. And he kicks off a tree. Bradley with his second throw. He's playing out of the rough. It looks like that worked nicely for him. There's a bridge that's just up ahead that you need to get across, and then when you get across that, that's at that point you're putting. Nobody's there just yet, but Bradley may be close. Brian's going with another thumber.
Go. Nice.
And Brian
That's
will be putting.
Like
And there's you see the basket up ahead. Andrew, there's a nice slight turnover shot, but it looks like it's gone a little too far. He'll have to play back to the basket to get his putt. And here's Owen.
Off that. All right.
Owen gets a lucky kick, kicked him towards the basket. And here's Bradley. He's going to throw a turnover shot with his putter to try to get close to the basket. And that worked for him very nicely. Faded out a little bit at the end, but that will putt. Here's Brian putting for par. So Brian gets his birdie. He moves ahead of Andrew, and he's 3 strokes behind Bradley. And we're moving on to basket 16. This is a par 5, 883 feet. This is a very long layout. All this tall grass you're going to see in front of you is OB, and it's off to their right. Brian's going to play over it. It's going to hyzer back for him nicely. And he's going to be in the middle of the fairway. It's a great place to be. Here's Andrew with his drive. He is also going to play over that OB a little bit. He's going to get a much further drive. And that's an amazing drive. Bradley Williams, he's going to hyzer off a bit too early. He has to be careful. There's OB over there. And it does look like he may have skipped into the OB. Here's Owen, who did go into the OB. This is his third shot. He's took a penalty. He went in the OB. And looks like he's going into the OB again. We'll have to wait and see. Bradley, who did go in the OB as well, with his third shot after taking the penalty. Here's Brian with his second shot. Here's Andrew. And he tries to play over that. That's all OB over there. He was trying to go over the OB and those tall trees, take a shortcut to the basket, and it didn't work out for him. Now he's on his 5th shot with the penalty. This time that works for him. But I'm not sure how close that'll get him. There's just some heavy vegetation he may need to play out from to get close to the basket. He may even gone too far. Here's Brian. Going with a thumber. He's just going to try to put it out and clear that opening. We'll have to see if that worked for him. Owen goes with a hyzer shot. As Bradley looked like he's also going to do.
Oh,
Brian just tries to get through the gap to get the putt, but it did not work out for him. Here's Andrew. He's putting for 6.
nice
And he
putt.
makes it.
Good putt, finisher.
Did they hit one chain on me?
Very frustrating hole for Andrew.
Yeah. Good putt.
And there you have it. 1 bogey, 3 pars. Moving on to basket 17. This is a par 4, 600 feet. This is a hole that's very open. Some tall grass to contend to, as you see off to the right. Players may play over that with a hyzer shot, stay on the fairway. And that's what Brian's going to do, is play over that a little bit. He's going to hyzer back.
Good shot.
And he's in an okay spot, but he has that tree to contend with. Here we have Owen with his tee shot. He's not going to play over the OB as much. It's going to skip for him. He's going to have a better look. The basket is just about 200 feet just beyond that big tree, maybe 250 feet, and it's in a grouping of trees. It's slight downhill elevation on the way to the basket. Here's Bradley with his tee shot. Bradley looks like he has the longest drive out of the group. He's right on the edge of the OB. There is some OB off to the left. It's in that rough. It's in a place you wouldn't want to be in the first place. Here is Andrew with his drive. He's going to play over with a hyzer shot over the OB. Has a very dangerous shot, but it worked out for him. He's again going to go over the OB again with this very spike hyzer shot, and he looks like he cleared it. It's just a matter of whether or not he has a putt or not at that point with that second shot. Brian also looking like he's going to play over that OB. And he does. He floats one. Not as much speed. Have to see how much of a skip he gets off that. He may get his 3. And here's Owen going to the sidearm shot. Very low. Misses all those branches. Looks like that's going to skip for him. It's just a matter with that one if he went too deep or not. There's Bradley with his second shot. Bradley took a very direct shot, and he has some trees here to contend with. And he makes it through that gap perfectly and makes the putt. And that's for birdie for him. Brian's also shooting for birdie. And he makes it as well.
Putt, Bry.
And that's a star frame as everybody got a birdie. And we're moving on to basket 18. This is a par 4, 320 feet. This is a very technical hole, very tight, narrow fairway. This was probably one of the tightest fairways on the course. Brian's going to go through that gap you see.
Oh, yeah. Good shot. Nice shot, dude. Beautiful.
Owen is, looks like he's kind of going with a sort of a sky forearm roller almost. Didn't appear to work for him very well. And here's Bradley's first shot. And he cuts that gap nicely. It's going to hyzer for him. The basket is off to the left. There's a mando tree that you have to be careful of. We can't really see it from where we are.
Okay.
Andrew cuts it short. Actually, that was it. They're off to the left with the orange and yellow band on the tree. So Owen is with his approach. Looks like he got struck down a little early. Here's Brian with his second shot.
Yep.
Bradley gets knocked down early. And Bradley almost had it. Just knocked off the rim. Just didn't have it a little high enough. Brian's putting for birdie. And with that, Brian gets his 4th birdie of the round. He picks up another stroke on Bradley. It's a 2-stroke lead now, assuming he makes his putt, and he does. So we have a 2-stroke difference now between Brian and Bradley. Andrew Fish. And now we're moving on to basket 20. This is a par 3, 372 feet. This is a downhill shot. The basket is off to the right. Brian's going to go with a backhand shot, try to get it to turn over. It does. Bradley's also going to try to do the same thing.
Come on, get him.
It's turning for him, but it kicks off a tree, and it's going to knock him down early. There's Andrew Fish with his drive. He's going to go with a sidearm. He's going to keep it low.
Good.
And he gets rejected. He gets kicked off a tree. Here's Owen also going to the sidearm.
Oh yeah. Inside route. Go far.
And just did not get a good skip for him. Here's Brian with his 2nd shot. He has a lane right in front of him through this gap. And he gets through there nicely, and he's just going to lay up.
Softly.
Here's Bradley. And he puts it out. He gets kicks off the tree. Almost had the same look that Brian had. Here's Andrew, his 2nd shot. He goes with a jump putt. And it doesn't get there. There's Bradley putting for par. And he doesn't get there. This opens the door for Brian. See if Brian can make his par. As Bradley's putting for 4. And he makes it. If Brian can make this putt for par, he'll make this a 1-stroke difference between him and Bradley. As we see Owen putting for par. And Brian makes this a 1-stroke lead between him and Bradley. Now we're moving on to basket 22. This is an uphill shot with the basket on an uphill elevation off to the right of where they're teeing from.
Well, we'll go that
A little too much turn on that. He looks like he may have snuck through and got a little further up than he thought he was going to get. Here's Owen going with his sidearm shot. He gets a lot of torque off that, and that's going way up. That would have been a perfect shot for the A position. He would have been putting for 2 off that was in the A position. Bradley goes with the backhand. It's going to hyzer off for him. It's going to take him away from where he was looking to go. Here's Andrew playing up the fairway. It's just up that narrow gap. And he gets through there nicely. Let's see if that drops for him. Right by the basket it does. He'll have a drop in for a 3. Here's Bradley. He's going to go with a sidearm turnover shot here. And it hits some vegetation and it drops for him. That may have helped him a bit. And here's Brian with his 2nd shot. Brian just floats it up there.
Don't you do it.
And it drops there for him. Owen went a little too far. He has to putt back to make this for 3. And he does. He hits it right in the sweet spot. And this just drops right down in the basket. Here's Bradley putting for 3. He needs this. And he makes it. So this is going to remain a one-stroke difference between him and Brian. Brian with this another short putt. Bradley felt the pressure and responded with that last putt he made. And we have another star frame as everybody made a birdie on this hole. And we're on to basket 23. This is a par 3, 318 feet. This is a downhill shot. Some vegetation off to the left and the right that you have to clear to be able to make your approach shot and get your par. Brian goes the backhand. His hyzer's off a bit too early. We'll have to see where that leads him. If you got enough penetration down the fairway, you may get a look at a birdie. Here's Andrew Fish with his drive. He gets that nice amount of turn on that. That's perfect. Hits a tree a little bit early, but he should have a good shot at a birdie shot. Here's Owen with his drive. Owen lets it go a little early, and he gets knocked down very early. And then Bradley with his drive. Bradley floats one down there. It's just going to keep dropping. And he kicks off a tree. He would have been in perfect position for a birdie if it hadn't hit that tree. Owen with his second shot. Owen looks like he's going to go through that very tight gap. And that hyzer's off for him. Here's Brian for 2. Brian being very aggressive. Just bounces off the top of the basket. Here's Owen paddling for 3. And it's going to go a little too far for him. He misses the basket completely. And Andrew with his birdie shot. And he just nudges the chains but doesn't go in. Here he is putting for 3. And he makes that. So there'll be no birdies on this hole. And we're moving on to basket 25. This is a par 4, 438 feet. This is a very tight gap to start with some sporadic trees down the fairway. You see Andrew driving. The basket lies on top of a mound, which is a very dangerous approach shot in this hole. A lot of times discs will make it close to the basket, but they'll stand up and they'll roll back down. This is from approach shot, this is a win or lose basket placer for the C-pin. As you'll see as we get down the fairway, here's Owen with a sidearm shot very high. Hit some vegetation up there, got knocked down. Here's Bradley with his second shot. And
great shot. Nice shot.
That was perfect. So he could, depending on how aggressive he's playing, try to get a 3. Brian makes it on top of the mount, but he may have skipped over and gone down the hill. We see Owen. And there's Andrew with his approach.
Nice shot, Fisher.
And Bradley's putting. And Bradley just a little too low. And Andrew makes the putt. For birdie. There's Owen also shooting for a birdie. So Bradley takes another stroke back. It's now a 2-stroke lead Bradley has over Brian, with Brian getting that unfortunate bogey. We're moving on to basket 26. This is a par 4, 444 feet. Here's Andrew. He's not known to be very patient off the tee. And looks like he is safe with that shot, although he did go into the vegetation off to the left with the rough. Here's Owen with his drive. He gets a nice amount of turn. Let's see if he can stay out of the rough. He may be on the edge. This is a layout where if you're going to go with a backhand, you have to get a certain amount of turn. Otherwise, you're going to go into the rough off the left. Bradley kicks off a tree and stays out of it, but he comes up short for distance. Here's Brian's drive. So Brian may have gone in the rough. We'll have to see. With Bradley's shot, he got knocked down early. He's going to go with a very tall hyzer shot. There's Owen. Looks like he's going to do much the same. Well, he floats it. He had a good amount of distance. It's the basket. Owen was very close. He got his shot through the gap. That will take it down the fairway. Brian's going to just go through that rough. Not sure if he made it there or not. That rough is really thick. Bradley just needs to kind of keep this shot low and hope it doesn't roll away. You can actually see the basket off to the left. Okay. He'll have a downhill putt. Here's Andrew. And he knocks off the basket, but he's in a safe position. I know he went down the hill, so he's playing back to the basket with his birdie shot. And he looked like he was running at it. He missed, but he's gonna make the next one for sure. Brian putting for 4. And he makes it. So if Bradley makes this, we're going to have another star frame. Everybody getting pars.
Bradley after the top first drive.
So no change in any of the positions here. Everybody's still in the same place. Moving on to basket 27. This is a par 4. This is 500 feet. Andrew has the box.
Oh, yeah.
Nope.
He just puts one out there relatively straight. Turns a little bit, hits a tree. Owen with his first shot. He's going with the sidearm. Gets a little too much turn.
High and go.
That was a very high shot at the end, and it just kicks off something and comes down. But we'll have a look at the basket from where he is, get a nice approach shot, see what he can get. Maybe he can get a birdie. Here's Bradley with his drive. He turns it over a little too much. Hopefully that had faded back for him, or maybe he got a lucky kick off a tree. Brian is driving. He's going with a thumber off the tee.
Oh,
And
Brian,
he
I fell right out of my freaking hand. Too much dirt.
dangerously went close to that vegetation just ahead, but he managed to get away from that. He got okay distance. Now he's going with another thumber. And he just played through that gap nicely.
Wow.
We'll have to see if that'll putt. That was amazing. Here's Andrew playing out of the rough. He's not sure what best option is here. He's just going to go with an overhand shot and try to drop it. And it looks like he's very close. He's rolling towards the basket. There's Owen with his second shot. He went with a hyzer shot. He's trying to look for the skip. There's a little mound there. It might have held him up. Here's Bradley with his second shot.
Great line.
Here's Brian with his third shot. He's shooting for birdie. And he makes it.
Good up and down.
John, I don't know when
He said I wasn't sure if I could get there. 30 feet past.
And Owen also gets his birdie. And Andrew with a drop in. So we have another star frame. Everybody gets a 3 here. So we are 2/3 of the way through this round. We have 9 holes to go. We're moving on to basket 28. This is a par 4, 500 feet. There is a road to contend with. It's off to the right. Andrew throws a very high turnover shot. We'll have to see if that fades back for him. Owen is going with a sidearm shot again. He gets a nice amount of turn on that. With a good skip, he should still be on the fairway. Here's Bradley with his drive. He puts it up high. It's turning nicely, but he kicks off a tree. He's going to be in some heavy rough with that second shot. And here is Brian with his drive. Brian has a fairly low shot. Looks like that worked it for him very nicely. A little turnover shot. Here's Bradley. He's at the edge of the rough with his second shot. And Brian has a grouping of trees here to get 10 with. He's going to put that out there. Nice speed on that.
Over it.
He just had to get 10 with a fallen tree branch there. Looks like he didn't make it past it. Here's Andrew with his approach. He makes it to the basket, but he skips away. So he's going to have to play back. Here's Owen with his second shot. He's going with a sidearm turnover shot, and he gets good height on it. It looks like it's not going to fade back for him, though. It just flipped over completely. Here's Bradley with his third throw. And that does not hyzer back for him like he hoped, and it even went a little too deep. We'll have to see if he can play back to get his putt. Here's Brian putting his third shot. He's making a run at this.
Stay up.
And he got it.
Great putt, Schweb.
That was perfect. So at this point, here we have Owen putting. He also makes it 4-3. Bradley is going to need this putt, otherwise he's going to lose a stroke. Brian's going to pick up a stroke on him. So right now we have Andrew, who is one stroke behind Brian. If he continues to be one stroke, if he makes his putt, and he does.
Solid. Oh, that one. No doubt.
So Bradley does manage to keep it to one stroke pickup for Brian. He's still one stroke ahead. Moving on to basket 29. This is a par 4, 461 feet. This is an uphill shot. Players are going to have to throw a relatively straight shot off the fairway that's going to kind of take a hyzer turn because it very well take a slight dogleg left. Here we see Andrew. He's going to show us the way.
That's large. And then shot.
And he kicked off a tree there at the end. That was almost a perfect shot. Here's Owen with his drive. Owen's also going with a hyzer shot. He has a lot of speed on it. He gets caught in that vegetation, knocked down early. Let's see if Brian can put one out there that has the same hyzer angle, just a little slower. See if we'll get better. And
Miss it.
And that worked. That was the ideal shot right there. And Bradley with his drive.
I was trying to do it.
And that worked for him very nicely. He should have the longest drive. Here's Owen with his second shot. He's trying to throw a turnover shot, make it through that gap. He gets kicked off a tree. And he goes really deep in the rough with his shot. He's going to have a tough third shot coming up. Here's Andrew with his playing out the edge of the rough. He just doesn't get up high enough to get beyond that log. Brian's going with a thumber once again. And that worked for Brian very nicely. Bradley with his second shot. He puts it up there. Hyzer's off a little bit, but Owen's not having a lot of luck getting out of the rough. But it looks like he finally did it, and he should make his next putt as we see Andrew play up to the basket. Here we have Bradley. He needs his putt. He doesn't get it. It just bounces off the rim. Brian makes his putt. Brian can tie him for the lead. Let's see if he could do it.
Yeah,
That's just
Schweberger.
perfect. So now we're going to have a tie. Bradley can make his next putt at 195 as we see Andrew make his par shot. Bradley just has a drop-in shot. So now we are tied for the lead between Brian and Bradley at 195. We're moving on to basket 30. This is a par 4, 367 feet. This is a downhill shot with a sudden dog leg. This is really a placement shot off the tee. You have to get your distal land right at the opening of that dog leg and see if Brian looks like he's got it. It's hard to tell, but it looks like that was slow enough of a drive that it made the gap.
Oh, yeah.
Andrew's doing the same thing. Here's Bradley. Oh, he kicked off a tree. He got a little too much turn. Here's Owen's drive.
Go further.
Here's Bradley playing out of the rough with his second shot. And hard to tell where that left him. Here's Brian. Brian can end up taking the lead if he gets a close enough shot here. And that works for him. It looks like that next shot will putt. So the pressure's on Bradley to make his next shot make his next putt. Otherwise, he may lose a stroke to Brian. As we see Owen make an approach. Just gets caught on the tree. Here's Bradley with his third shot. Brian should have an easy putt, so this is putting a lot of pressure on Bradley to make this. Bradley puts it up there, and it just hits off the top of the basket and does not go in. So at this point, Brian could have this lead all to himself as we see Andrew Fish make an amazing putt. And so now we have a one-stroke lead for Brian as he made the putt for birdie. We're going to go to a quick break as we just saw Brian make that 9th birdie of the round. Don't go away. We'll be right back with more third-round coverage.
Every time an adult gives up on our kids, every time we surrender to the belief that their future is out of our hands, another child is left behind. I'm General Colin Powell, and I don't believe in giving up. That's why I'm asking you to join America's Promise. Whoever you are, wherever you are, you can do something important. Pull your weight.
And welcome back, and now we're on basket 31. This is a par 5 at 600 feet. This is one of the most challenging holes on the course. This is an uphill shot where the layout will take fairway will take a sudden dog leg left.
Yep.
It looks like Brian got through there nicely. The players this is essentially a placement shot going uphill because you want to keep your disc with a hyzer shot that just stays on the fairway. It's a placement shot to stay on the fairway, and then you're going to have kind of a zigzag approach up the hill as the fairway takes a zigzag kind of layout. And it looks like everybody's managed this placement shot nicely thus far. Bradley going up the middle with a hyzer shot. We see Andrew on the edge of the fairway going with a sidearm shot.
Wow.
And it looks like that worked very nicely, still on the fairway. Brian is roughly in the same position, edge of the fairway, going with a turnover sidearm shot, or actually it's more of a thumber.
Okay, yeah.
And that's in the middle, so that works for him. Here's Owen, who is in the middle of the fairway, going with a very low sidearm shot. But he just went right at that tree and got knocked down. Here's Bradley playing out from the edge of the fairway again, taking the same style shot as Andrew, and looks like that worked for him, but he's kind of on the other edge of the fairway now. He'll put up a nice turnover backhand shot. We'll see if that gets him out of the woods. So at about 100 feet, we're going to get out of the woods.
I hear you.
And the basket is out in an open field. Brian looks like he's going with a thumber-like shot here.
Oh, fell right out of my freaking hand.
Wow.
And as you hear, it sounded like he got an early release there. Here's Andrew with his third shot. He just let that go a little late, and it smacked off a tree.
Fishy thumber.
Beautiful.
So he's throwing a thumber to try to lay up. Here's Bradley with his birdie shot. You can actually see the basket off to the right flag, and oh, he was making a run at it. It looks like he almost made it. Here's Owen with his birdie shot. And it just fades a little too early on him. And that's Bradley making his shot for par. Brian will be shooting for birdie here. And we'll take another stroke lead ahead of Bradley if he makes his putt. We get to see Andrew putt out first. He makes his putt. So now we have 2-stroke lead by Brian, as that's his 10th birdie of the round. We're moving on to basket 32. This is a par 3, 263 feet. So Brian with his 10 birdies now. Goes with a thumber shot. And now we have Andrew Fish that takes the box. He throws a relatively straight and low shot that's going to kick right off that tree, push it a little bit away from the basket. Here's Owen with his drive. A little too much turn. He kicks off the tree and it kicks him way deep into the rough. Here's Bradley with his drive. He puts one up high, and it's just going to float on down. Let's see if it'll miss that tree. It does.
Yeah.
And he's going to go somewhat beyond the basket and a little further away as it hyzers out. Andrew does not get a good approach shot. It bounced off that tree and rolled back. Here's Bradley with his birdie attempt, and he makes it. And that is his 7th birdie of the round. Here's Brian shooting for par. And he makes it. Andrew Fish makes his par. So Brian gives back a stroke to Bradley. Bradley picking up a birdie. We're moving on to basket 33. This is a par 5, 587 feet. This is an uphill shot with a steady grade. And this fairway will take an S-turn. Here's Bradley with his drive is going to throw a turnover shot. Some players will throw purposefully into the rough that's off up the fairway and off to the left. It's kind of a local route to get a 3. Brian goes with the thumber. It's a little too much turn and kicks off some of those trees off to the left of the fairway. Here is Andrew with his drive. Gets a straight shot with some nice turn at the end. It's going to fade. He's going to be on the edge of the fairway. And here is Owen with his first drive. He's going with a sidearm. He gets it up high and quite a bit of turn. Looks like that should put him on the fairway. It's all a matter of how far up the fairway it got. If he got too far up, he could be deep in the rough. Here's Brian. He's going to the thumber. He looks like he's going to go out into that vegetation, that local route I talked about before. He gets quite a bit of turn and kicks off the tree. That's the danger of going that route. It's win or lose. And Owen is going with a sidearm turnover shot. Looks like he hit something at the end. Andrew is also going through this local route. It was very dangerous of him to do that. He had that vegetation right in his flight path. He had not much of a chance of avoiding that, but he went with it and he lost. Here is Bradley going with a sidearm turnover shot. Andrew didn't fare as badly as I had thought previously. Here's Brian with his third throw. And that will set him up for a birdie. Here's Owen trying to set himself up for a birdie. He's going to go with a jump putt, and that's going to get him very close. He will get his birdie.
When he said it doesn't even hit a tree, hit that dead thing.
And everybody's putting for 4 here. So this is another star frame. Brian still has that 1-stroke lead. We have 3 holes to go. This is hole basket 34. This is a par 3, 348 feet. We're playing from the short tee. Bradley goes straight down the middle.
Great.
Yay.
Have to see where his lie is. So some players will take the route that you just saw Bradley take, straight up the middle. Other ones will take a very tall hyzer shot off to the right. Brian takes the same route that Bradley did, but he kept a much lower shot. Here's Andrew. See what he has in store for us. He is also going through that route. He gets some decent turn, misses that tree. Let's see how close that puts him to the basket. The basket is a little over 30 feet away from some OB. And there you see that vegetation right there. That is also OB. Owen kicks off a tree. He gets really good distance. He's going with a jump putt. And that will putt. He will get his 3. Here's Bradley. He way overshot the basket with that drive. He's playing back. And he will get his 3. He'll roll away there at the end. There's Brian with his second shot. Brian will get that in the air. It will drop just short of the basket. Here's Andrew with that OB I was talking to you about in the background. He goes with the jump putt and just does not make it. So everybody's going to take a par here. So Bradley is starting to run out of time here. He has 2 baskets left to either tie or win over Brian. It's basket 35, par 3, 322 feet. Brad just throws a tall, high shot out there. It clears through and it kicks towards the basket. That is definitely going to help him out a lot. So this puts the pressure on Brian to get that disc, his tee shot as close to the basket as possible. He's going at a thumber. He's going to float that out there. It's coming in nicely. And it doesn't look like it hit anything, so we'll have to see where that leaves him as well. Andrew is going to the backhand. It's going to hyzer a little too soon, carry him away from the basket. But he got decent penetration. Here's Owen with his drive.
It's about the straightest
And he got a nice amount of turn on that. It's coming back. He may have gone a little deep. We'll have to see. There's Andrew. And he just doesn't get in the air long enough. Brian did not get the distance with that drive. He's come up short. He has these trees to contend with. And it just comes a little bit low. And Bradley is almost in the same position, but a little closer. Putting for 2. He could tie this if he makes it. And he gets it. Oh, it just bounces a little bit in the back of the cage, but stays in for a 2. And we have a tie. As we also have Owen putting for birdie. Andrew is playing back for his 3. One hole to go. We have a tie. So we are all tied up with 1 hole to go. Bradley with his tee shot. And that's going to turn a little bit. It's going to come
Great shot.
not too close. That's OB off to the left. That got to stay away from that open grass. Owen is going to throw a turnover shot. It's turning, but it's fading back on him. This is going to be very close to the, and he goes OB.
Right out. Too much.
He was right in the OB. It just does not flip enough for him before fading back and going into the out of bounds. Brian's thinking long and hard about what he wants to do here. He's going with a thumber. He is going to float that out there. It's going to drop down.
Shot.
Nice.
So at this point, Brian definitely needs a 3 if he has any chance of if he can get a 3 and Owen and Bradley has to settle for a 4. This could definitely work in Brian's favor. Here's Bradley's second throw, and he's going to throw over the tall grass, the OB. This could really, wow. So this is really going to put a lot of pressure on Brian. At this point, things aren't looking very good for Brian as Bradley may be punting for a 3. So this next throw is a big shot for Brian as you see Owen has to throw again as disc went out of bounds. He did not clear the field. And he's throwing again. This time he gets much better penetration and he makes it. He's safe with that shot. Here's Andrew.
Flip.
As long as it has enough.
Andrew clears the field as well. Here's Brian with a second throw. He must get close enough to get the 3. And he's going up and over.
Enough? Too far.
Yeah, I think that's enough.
Oh, let's
It
see
came in
where
the
that
right
puts
angle,
him.
you know what I mean?
This is a must-make putt for Brian. And it's just a little too tall. It bounces off the rim. So this could be all. This could be Bradley's win with this putt. And that's
Nice,
dead in the
Brad.
change for the win. Bradley Williams is our 2016 Eric C. Yetter Memorial Champions Cup winner by 1 stroke on the very last hole. Very impressive win for Bradley. So we see Andrew, he's wrapping up. He's shooting for birdie. And he makes it. And Owen also makes his shot for a double bogey. Well, I'll do it for the 2016 Yetter Champions Cup. Bradley won with an impressive late win at the last hole. Go away. We'll be right back. Well, that was an impressive run by Brian Schweberger to take first place away from Bradley towards the end of the round. Bradley found the strength and stamina to pull together and take the lead back as the round drew to a close. Well, that's all the time we have for this month's edition of Disc Golf Monthly. This has been Disc Golf Monthly, the show that takes you one step closer to the exciting sport of disc golf.